Today my guest is Mark Bostleman. Mark, how are you?
Good.
Hey, what do you do?
I'm the architect for the MES team here at First Solar. MES is Manufacturing Execution Systems,
Okay.
and First Solar manufactures solar panels.
Okay.
So we write the software that supports that.
And you and I have been in this room for the last week,
Yep.
building a proof of concept around Windows Azure.
Right.
Why are you guys interested in Azure?
Well, we're just we're trying to understand what cloud platform and services can do for us. What kind of challenges we have that they might be that they might help solve.
Okay, so you haven't really decided yet whether Azure
No.
is going to be the solution to your
Right.
problem.
Just
So
proof
you
of
wanna say-
concept. We're just poking around and looking at how we can apply the cloud.
Okay. And you picked, before I got here, you picked out an application, an old Windows Forms application, I think it was a WPF app, that we're going to recreate
Right.
in Windows Azure. What was the problem space?
So we have customers who have solar panels out in the field. They need to supply us with basically the serial number of those, and they need to get back performance information on that product that they're going to then put in an RFID tag. So the performance information is the result of some calculations on some sensitive data. So we can't just give them the data and the calculations.
Right.
So we need to keep the data back here. They need to give us the serial numbers, and we give them back the result.
Okay.
And we do that now with the WPF application inside First Solar. So they send us the serial numbers. We run it, get the result, and transfer that file manually back to them. That's
Okay.
the current application.
Yeah, you mentioned sensitive data, and that people always pause when they hear sensitive data and cloud computing because they're nervous about giving up control of the
Sure.
sensitive data.
Right.
Talk a little about the architecture and how you solved that problem particularly.
So what we did with the Azure proof of concept then this week is that we did a web role in Azure so that the customer, so this is a self-service thing. Now the customer can put in the serial numbers themselves in this web application. And then we use messaging, Azure queues, such that when they submit these serial numbers, we drop a message on a queue that comes in, and then we have a handler inside our domain here that picks up that message.
That's a Windows service that's running
Windows
inside
service,
the firewall. Okay.
inside firewall. Picks up that message, does all the calculations necessary, and then puts the result in a blob storage back in Azure, and then a response on the queue, such that then when the user comes back at some later time, their job is done. So it's an asynchronous thing. So they also have in the web application, besides submitting the serial numbers, they have a list of their jobs that they can come pick up later when they're complete.
Okay.
And they click on a link and they get the file.
And that's
we
an
send
improvement
back.
over the WPF's architecture or the WPF applications architecture because that
Yeah.
was all synchronous.
Well, and
These
it's
things
an
take a
improvement
long
on a
time.
couple levels. First of all, it allows the customers to do it self-service, and we don't have
Right.
to do it manually for them. That's one thing. But yeah, the more important thing is that the previous application did all, and it's fairly intensive. So it did a synchronous call, which was a long, it was minutes. Whereas now we can break it down and do that, in the background.
Okay. And you also mentioned that all that processing is happening inside the firewall.
Yes.
And that's where the sensitive data is, right?
Correct.
You don't
Right.
need access to that
Yeah.
outside of there.
So we're doing the same thing as we were doing before, in that the only thing leaving the firewall is the resulting data.
Okay.
Yet it's with a cloud solution. So.
And you use a lot of pieces of Azure. I heard you mention web roles, worker roles. Actually, you didn't mention worker roles.
No,
Worker
I
roles is
didn't,
what
yeah.
pulls it off of the
response.
queue, the response off of
Right.
the queue,
Yep.
asynchronous.
On its way back. Yep.
What else do we have? Queues, of course.
We have Azure queues, a web role, a worker role. We're using blob storage.
Blob storage.
We're using table storage.
Table storage for
Which-
what is that for?
Well, that holds the metadata of the job. So when they make a request and they drop the request message on the queue, we also enter some of the details about that in table storage, so that when
Okay.
they come back, they can see that at least the request was sent and that maybe it's pending, or that it's successful, or whatever. They see the status of it.
You're speaking pretty intelligently about this for a guy that's only had about a week experience
Yeah.
working with
Well,
Azure.
it's been 8 hours a day for a week, right?
So you got exposure to a lot of these different pieces of Azure. How was that experience developing with Azure?
It was good. It was interesting. The portal, very really user friendly, all UI driven, obviously.
Yeah, that's all brand new, the HTML5 stuff.
So there's a lot of parts and pieces. I mean, all the connection strings and the setup. But generally, it's pretty good. It was no major problems.
What were the big issues? What were the big challenges that you faced?
The biggest challenge, which we don't have completely solved at this point, is it's a whole authenticating these external users. So we chose to use ACS, which is Access Control, the Azure Access Control Service, and chose to use Windows Live live.com as the authentication provider. Mm-hmm. And we have that working, but the user experience is not quite as smooth as we'd like. So we need to finesse that a little bit. But getting that all set up was a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
And ultimately, what we'd like to do is the ADFS integration.
We never got to that part.
No, that's even the next step up. That would probably be the thing we'd really like to master for these types of applications.
What? So this is not only you've solved a problem, but this is a great learning experience for you as well. There's a lot of people out there that are thinking about Azure and want to learn it. What you have advice for them?
Well, just dig in and do some sample projects like we did this week.
We dug into the Windows Azure training kit stole a lot of code out of there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. All the labs. But other than that, no, I guess just, like anything else, just dive in. I mean, I learn things best by just doing them. So, find sample projects, read some blogs, and just start doing it.
Is this an application you think you'll move into production?
We may. We'll see. I'm gonna do some internal communication on this. I'm gonna do some meetings and some talks internally, and talk through it. And we might. We'll see.
Yeah, I want to call out, by the way, Mike Benkovic, who helped us to solve that ACS problem.
Yeah, he was a big help today, actually, with the ACS stuff. Yep.
That's all the questions I got.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate it. It was good working with you. Yeah,
appreciate it.
So I haven't been to the site, but I need to check out Technology and Friends.